Hey, yo, what's the deal? Miss your boy Tag from Pro Wrestling Tag, you know what I mean? As of this recording, it is 10:12 p.m., July 5th, 2026, but the upload time to this is actually 11:30. Now, I mean, this is the last video of the day or the night. The day or the night. The day or the night. You know what I mean? Yeah, so I'm going to do two discussion videos in one. You know what I mean? Because, of course, this afternoon I was able to give you guys my thoughts about Sheamus and why I think, Sheamus and WWE departing from each other might be a good thing for both. Now, I mean, you could go check out the video. It's there. You know what I mean? Just go to my page and it's there. You know what I'm saying? And I thought about something. And this is why I was talking about Sheamus. I had a really, really, really long thought about his era and his time in WWE, right? And for some weird reason, let me sip this water. Hold on. It's not like good water. Know what I'm saying? Especially when it's hot like a motherfucker. But going back to Sheamus. Sheamus, and this is no fault of his own. This is no fault of people like him, Cesaro, Bryan Danielson. You know what I mean? Like these guys that were Dolph Ziggler. For some weird reason, I did not like the WWE going into 2010 to 2014. For some weird reason. You know what I mean? Because, yes, I mentioned those three. You know what I mean? Because those three, represented the era for that time. And yes, CM Punk is another one who I could throw in. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know what it was about that era that I didn't like. I don't know if it was, the way how Vince was running storylines there and such. It just wasn't fun. It just wasn't fun. You had the Bellas running roughshod there. You know what I mean? You had the Bellas there. You know what I mean? You had Alicia Fox. You know what I mean? You had fucking Natty's great. Natty is great. I could give them Natty. Now, I mean, Natty is fucking great. Tamina Snuka. Tamina's not bad. You know what I'm saying? But also think about this too. Okay? You had Summer Rae. Remember Summer Rae? Y'all remember Summer Rae? You also had Total Divas. And I think that's what I didn't like as well about that, about that era. Paige, no fault of our own with Paige. It was just not a great era. The primetime players, both of them are great and such. But I don't know. It's just something about that. It was something about WWE that I call it the white rope era. You know what? That's the fucking thing I'm going to call it. I did not like the white rope era of WWE. You know what I'm saying? Because it just wasn't fun. It was just not fun. I don't know what it was. The authority. You know what I mean? The authority and shit. It was just trash. It was just fucking trash. It wasn't fun. And I don't know if it was also during a fucked up time in my life and such, but I just didn't like it. I mean, I didn't really have a real fucked up time, but there were some moments around that era that I personally did not like. Yeah, I mean, in my life. But yeah, so it was just, but after 2014, that's when things started to change. I don't know if it was because of the rise of, and I think that's what it was. The rise of NXT, Black and Gold. You know what I'm saying? When Triple H took over, that's when, things started to really manifest. I liked WWE going back to 2006, going to 2010. But for some reason, when it's 2010, I think that's what it was too. Possibly because of the whole Total Divas era and such. It just wasn't fun. I didn't like it. And then, FCW, It just wasn't a great time. You know, I think there were a lot of wrestlers there that could have gotten, a bigger and better push. But when you have someone like Vince there, I mean, it kind of fucks up everything. And then remember, Curtis Axel and, D.H. Smith, fucking Tyson Kidd. Tyson Kidd was great, but what happened? I don't know. It's just, that era was not fun. You know what I'm saying? Like, in retrospect, I think people like Batista dodged the bullet. You know what I mean? People like Batista dodged the bullet. Even when Brock came back, right? It just wasn't fun. And remember, look who, I think also the other part too is, look who was also running Roughshod, Super Cena. And I think that's what it was also. But that's just me. But segue to the second topic that I wanted to bring up. Even with that, right? I still enjoyed pro wrestling. I still enjoy it. And I still enjoy it now. The other part is why do you like pro wrestling? Why do you still watch? Why do you still like, watching like pro wrestling after all these decades later? It's just something about pro wrestling that is, I don't know, it's a different world. It's a different experience. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's fun. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a movie buff. I used to be, but I mean, I still watch movies here and there. You know what I mean? But I'm not a buff. I'm not as buff on movies as I was before, right? And let me also go back to 2010, 2014. That doesn't mean that I didn't like pro wrestling around that time too. It was just WWE that I didn't like. Ring of Honor was still popping. TNA was still popping too. But let me go back into things. Pro wrestling is one of those things that, it never leaves you. It never, it never left me. It never fucking left me. You know what I mean? I've seen a lot. I've seen a whole lot of stuff with pro wrestling over the years. Many, many changes. Many fucking changes. You know what I mean? And many events that happened. And I still got glued. You know what I mean? I still got glued to the sport. You know what I'm saying? Shit. I remember, like I said, when wrestling was just, one of those novelty programs that you just watch. You know what I mean? Like on Saturday mornings and, Saturday and Sunday mornings and sometimes late Friday night. You know what I mean? Like going into 1, 2 in the morning. It was like that. It's like watching cartoons. You know what I mean? Watching American Gladiators. You know what I'm saying? They had video games and everything. I seen pro wrestling come a long fucking way. A very long way. You know what I mean? To when it got to Monday nights and shit. I lived through the Attitude Era. I lived through it. You know what I mean? I lived through the Ruthless Aggression Era. It's just fun to watch. Pro wrestling is fun. Not only is fun to watch, but it's also fun to talk about. You know what I mean? I'll tell you this though. I only talk about it with certain people. I will never talk about it with people say, oh, it's fake because you get punched in your mouth. But, I will always talk about it with people who are fans of it. You know what I mean? Even in agreements or disagreements, it's still fun to watch for me personally. You know what I mean? And so with pro wrestling, there's never been one of those, it's never been one of those things where I tuned out completely. I know people who was tuned out completely. And either it's because, they just lost the feel for it or, they moved on with their life. You know what I mean? They probably got kids, they're married and they're working. You know what I mean? But then they'll probably watch it, here and there, they'll pop into it and stuff. Me, like I said, I watch it a lot. You know what I mean? That's why, I created this fucking channel. You know what I mean? Pro Wrestling Tag, because it's something that I love to watch. You know what I'm saying? It's something that I love to do. And I think when I get to my 60s and 70s, I'm still going to be watching pro wrestling. You know what I mean? Because again, it's fun to fucking watch. Like it's, even here's the funny thing about pro wrestling too. Okay. Pro wrestling basically has everything, bro. You know what I mean? It has comedy, drama, suspense, action. You know what I mean? Horror. Everything is there in pro wrestling. You know what I mean? Like you have a disagreement, you just, you take it out in the ring. Like right now, I'm watching Judge Judy, right? I'm watching Judge Judy right now. And imagine, you take all you say, fuck going to court. You know what I mean? Like, fuck it, we're going to settle this in the ring. Or the judge tell you, oh, well, settle this shit in the ring. If you lose, you're guilty. You know what I mean? That shit is fun. It's fun. And again, like I said, I've lived through it. I've lived through pro wrestling so many years. Shit, me and Mama Tag watch it every single fucking week. Every week. Especially on Saturdays. You know what I mean? When we watch Wild Women of Wrestling. Which, by the way, I don't know why the fuck they give a repeat. I don't. You know what I mean? Like, WoW is pissing me off. You know what I mean? And I also tried watching the NWA. NWA Power on Comet. That shit is not enjoyable to watch. You know what I mean? And as I turn around, I just see some fucking flash. You know what I mean? They did say it was going to rain. Joy and rain. Let me see. Is it going to rain? Is it going to rain? There we go. You hear the fucking thunder. But yeah, B, I mean, listen. Pro wrestling, just like sports, I'm always going to watch it forever. You know what I mean? It's fun. It's always going to be fun, And like I said, it's one of those things that for me it's hard to grow out of. Shit, I remember I wasn't watching pro wrestling for a while, like back in like the mid 90s. I wasn't watching it for a while because there was nothing that interested me. You know what I mean? Like the only thing that interested me at that time was cable and of course video games and such, right? And girls, but I still get interest by that. Yeah, I'm still heavily interested by that. But that like took my time. But then like I felt like I was outgrowing it. But then, once I got cable and then I started seeing, Monday Nitro and Monday Night Raw, that's when everything changed. And then again, the Attitude Era came in. You know what I mean? So I got hooked on it again. Pro wrestling, to me, is one of those things that, you leave it alone for a while, right? And then when it's right, you come right back to it. You know what I mean? You come right back to it and you're in love with it. You're in love with it again. You know what I mean? So, but that's just my opinion and stuff. Yeah, so like I said, it's the last video of the day. You know what I mean? I got work in the morning. You know what I'm saying? So a brand new week start. And oh yeah, check out the 3 videos that I posted early in the morning. I didn't get up and post it early. I programmed it. You know what I mean? Because I took video of the fireworks, of the Macy's 4th of July, fireworks and such. When I went outside, there was mad people. I'm like, what the fuck? You would think these motherfuckers just came out the fucking Barclays Center. I mean, that's how crowded it was. You know what I mean? But anyway, y'all, I'm about to be out. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, tomorrow's a new week and such of pro wrestling news and stuff. So I'm gonna definitely holler at y'all mañana. All right? Peace.